Lesson 8. Out of unity you arise. The return to unity is your destiny. The mind discovers the path of return while the heart provides the key to each stage along the way. Dear friend, powers. The question of esoteric or occult powers is the subject of many discussions in esoteric schools or circles. Many schools say they are against powers, probably to prevent the person in charge from being rapidly outdone by his pupils. This is the reason why a number of people studying Hermetic disciplines claim that they do not seek powers. This displays a profound ignorance of the very nature of the subject. You don't have to be for or against powers, but simply accept the rules of nature which concern them. We hope that this lesson will bring some much-needed light on the subject. It is a complex subject, however, if we consider it as a whole. Later, after considering several of its aspects, everything should become clear and logical. To understand the subject better, always keep several basic principles in mind. The basic principles: 1. There is in the universe a hierarchy of powers and forces analogous to the 10 levels of consciousness and density, see figure in Lesson 3. Note that a force at one level cannot act against a force of a higher level. 2. Therefore there is no miracle possible in the sense of a breach of the laws of nature, because everything is bound by the absolute laws of the universe. The miracles which appear in our world come from the enforcement of the laws of the higher worlds. 3. In the finite world all the laws are double and appear in positive, active and negative, passive aspects. 4. In nature, the rule is as follows: the active aspect is the conductor, the passive aspect is the receiver or obstacle. In order to understand the question of powers, you must know that their nature or the possibility to use them varies for man in accordance with the stages of his universal journey: involution, evolution. Hierarchy of the natural powers. During the universal journey, involution, the first time, man is born on level 1. Levels 2 and 3 provide him with the elements necessary for his future journey. The potentiality of duality is taking form in him. In the Garden of Eden, he is subject to the law of unity. He knows no good nor evil, and moreover his consciousness doesn't even allow him to grasp the law of unity. Actually, he is not a free being. The Garden of Eden is a prison for him. He must escape in order to accomplish his journey into duality. At this price only can he obtain the freedom that will allow him to comprehend the law of his original world. In order to do so, the being must clear the veil of the abyss, vi. However, this can only occur in a state, contrary to nature, called the original sin, or the fall from grace. The law is evolution toward the infinite and not involution toward the finite. However, involution is a necessity because of the very nature of things. A first initiation, or rather a counter-initiation, at the levels 3 to 4 reverses the forces in man and thus creates the possibility of acquiring freedom on his own. Here the word initiation is taken in its sense of beginning. The beginning of the great evolution journey. The expression, counter-initiation, signifies that the result of the initiation is a descent towards denser planes, whereas the usual meaning of the word initiation is a reascent toward more subtle planes. This initiation into duality, let's call it counter-initiation into duality, will have 3 consequences in man. 1. It takes him away from the domain of the law of unity, levels 1 to 3. 2. It makes him pass into the plane of the double law, into the space-time plane, levels 4 to 10. 3. It reverses nature's principle in him. His active, evolutionary principle becomes subject to the passive negative principle. The forces of involution are now the dominant forces in him. This reversal causes man to descend, one by one, the levels of consciousness by granting, more or less unconsciously, the preference for the negative aspect of things. This allows him to continue his involution to the point of maximum density, level 10, our world, a point at which the forces reverse again and become evolutionary under the effect of the initiation of the nadir. At levels 3 to 4, the man who just received the counter-initiation of duality still has some self-consciousness left, few intellectual tools, but his powers are enormous. Weather, rain, the fire of the sky, see symbolism of Jupiter, are his possible servants. However, a complex, double phenomenon with hardly foreseeable consequences will occur. Man will progressively lose his original powers and become more aware of his self-consciousness. The thrust and the effects of the negative aspect of the laws of duality diminish progressively until the being has reached level 10. There, the initiation of the nadir again reverses the principles in him and puts him back in tune with nature. The active aspect now prevails over the passive aspect. Involution is complete, evolution starts. He now has self-consciousness, but he no longer has the powers of the higher levels. Here begins the return of the prodigal son who has lost everything. During involution, whoever has the highest powers is the least advanced. At each counter-initiation, man descends one level and the level he leaves stays with him in his unconscious, but he loses its powers. At each phase of the descent he becomes aware of a darker, denser plane in which his freedom has more effect but on a smaller field with less risk and less danger. The physical world in which we live is ruled by physical and psychic laws. Some are known to current science, but the greater majority remains unknown to this day. Therefore, man of Earth, whose level is 10, is fully subject to the laws of this level. However, there are many people today who have partial and unconscious access to higher planes and are thus partly liberated from the laws of level 10 because the higher laws have priority on them. As a matter of fact, the laws of level 9 dominate those of level 10 and the laws of level 8 dominate those of level 9 and so on. The beings whose inner level is 10 are subject to the determinism of the laws of Earth only. But as soon as they have access to the higher levels, they are progressively liberated from this constraint. Evolution, the return, the reascent during which the being retrieves his original powers, but with more freedom, doesn't occur in one but in 4 journeys. The first journey occurs in the first degree of each of the 10 levels. Each level is comprised of 4 degrees. The second journey occurs in the second degree of each of the 10 levels, etc. In this extended evolutionary journey, the powers are reinstated and are secured for the remaining incarnations, although the being may not necessarily be aware of this. Let's illustrate this mechanism. Imagine a being who reascends and who especially worked in level 4, in the course of his journey in the first degree. This level will manifest in the following incarnations in the form of a strong interest for esoterics or a natural tendency to own many riches of various orders. This same phenomenon with level 5 results in an aptitude for feat of arms. At level 6, art and healing would be predominant. However, if these same phenomena were to occur during the second degree journey, the effects are more potent, more pronounced. Generally in the journey of each degree, from level 6 and above, that is, 6, 5, 4, the awakened powers tend to remain conscious and attain their peak in the last journey, the journey of the 4th degree. We could wonder why several degrees are needed and in consequence why, once we attained level 1, we must return to level 10. The reascent would not be actually possible, or at least very critical, was there only 1 degree. In addition, there is no regression because the level 10 of the second degree is higher than the level 1 of the first degree and the level 10 of the third degree is higher than the level 1 of the second degree and so on. Each degree is symbolized by one of the 4 elements in the following order: earth, water, air and fire. Every one of us will have regained his natural powers at the end of his time. Once the potential image that we were has turned into a being, a reintegrated man, each one of us then possesses all the powers existing in nature. Obviously, this requires preparatory work. It also requires that the powers be regained progressively in quantity and quality. As a matter of fact, reascending the levels of consciousness creates in each adept a new series of powers with the completion of each phase, and along with the completion there is an increase of energy in the powers acquired previously. The point is not to be for or against powers, but to accept nature's laws concerning all beings proceeding within a revolution. The faculties are thus naturally awakened and remain so in the following incarnations. We can actually only advance. In the course of evolution, we cannot step one level or one world back. Moreover, one of the functions of the inner self is to prevent us from accessing higher levels if we do not possess the strength to endure them. For your information, we should say that this function of the inner self is sometimes called the guardian of the threshold, and doesn't exist as a separate entity. The cosmic wind, we already talked about it in Lesson 3, but we think it useful to resume discussion of the subject. The cosmic wind is the force which compels us to take responsibility for our growth. It is a manifestation of the love of the Absolute. This law is intangible, but it has two actions which depends upon the nature of the being upon whom it has an action. For the man who just received the counter-initiation of duality, the force compels him to descend towards the darkness of the denser worlds. This descent is indispensable to the realization of his growth. The Kabbalists call this force Shaitan. Christians made an individual out of this force, Satan, which is not without serious psychological drawbacks. The initiation of the nadir puts man back in tune with the laws of nature. There, the effect of the force, the cosmic wind, is harmonious and carries man toward the light of the higher worlds. Lucifer is the bearer of light. The false prophets, an interesting fact, whoever descends to level 6 has the same powers as those who ascends to level 6. However, the one who descends has less freedom. One who evolves toward level 6 is an unobtrusive being, he melts into the crowd. He is an instructor but never will bear the title of master because his first concern is the respect of others' freedom. One who evolves to level 6 tends to use the negative aspect of his powers. He presents himself as a master, seeking to reduce others' freedom because he is not very free himself. Many public masters, gurus or others belong to this domain. They are the false prophets of the apocalypse. Artificial powers. If the restitution of natural powers is the inevitable result of initiation and devolution, it is not the case for artificial powers. They result from the activation of a degree within a level which a man has not yet attained. The activation happens through the resonance which is created by the use of the symbols, generally formulated into a ritualistic format. Within each level, the element invoked by the symbols of the ritual sets the degree to be attained on that level. A fire ritual acts on the 4th degree, an air ritual on the 3rd, a water ritual on the 2nd and an earth ritual on the 1st. The 10th level, which is the level of our worlds, is excluded from these processes. Levels 1 and 2 are practically speaking not accessible through this system. We do not provide any more details about these rituals because they need a special class and a long preliminary study before they can be practiced without danger. Whoever has cleared the nadir naturally tends to activate the positive aspects of the level and degree. He is a white magician. Whoever hasn't yet reached the nadir naturally tends to use the negative side of the level and degree. He is a black magician. We should specify that the power thus awakened is only temporary, generally for the duration of the action called up by the ritual. However, the repetition of the same operation can impregnate the psyche and create an imbalance resulting in mental or psychic problems. The formula: there are rituals which are condensed into a format called a formula. In this case, the resonance of the words creates a temporary raise of the level of consciousness. As a result, it is easier to accomplish our goal and the protection of our physical body is ensured. The notarikon, which is a technique of Kabbalah, works with this aim in mind particularly. Each letter composing it is the first letter of a word. Thus we can either vibrate the notarikon or vibrate the words from which it issues. See oratory work. The initiations. Certain groups, schools or philosophical societies perform ceremonies of initiation. The point is to know what kind of effects they have on the receiver, and if there is a breach in the rule according to which each one is the son of his deeds. These initiations can be divided into 3 categories. 1. Initiations allowing you to enter certain groups which do not practice esoteric activities, They are formal ceremonies with no effect upon the path of the candidate. They correspond to the common sense of the word, to begin an activity. 2. Initiations given by groups which had an esoteric activity in the past. In this case, the original symbolism of the initiation left a few traces. But, in general, their effect is almost non-existent on the inner state of the initiate. However, they can awaken a greater sensitivity for the work proposed later on. These ceremonies have quite often descended from genuine initiations which progressively lost their value because of mistakes in the behavior of the group who originally performed them, or because they no longer correspond to the current evolutionary level of humanity. 3. Initiations, which are given by esoteric groups, are generally occult and unknown to the public. In these initiations, the rites of which are for the most part coming from Kabbalah, we essentially manipulate two energies, fire for spiritual purification and water for bodily purification. The result of these initiations can be considered a work tool which facilitates the esoteric path but doesn't exempt you from personal work. Those who are tempted by initiations with untimely awakening should beware. In this case, one level is overactivated to the detriment of the others. Most of the time the primary energy is drawn from anywhere except from level 1. The consequences of the imbalances which can be provoked are catastrophic, not to say destructive, a subject we will approach next. The descent of the energies, the energy of the non-manifest penetrates manifestation at level 1. Its quality and quantity are infinite. For the needs of creation, nature takes from this energy and creates its own channel for the descent of the energy, one level at a time. But nature is economical by obligation, it only takes what it absolutely needs for its work. A lack or an excess of energy creates an imbalance which must be compensated for in order to maintain universal balance. Lesson #10. The student who wants to use this energy must imitate nature and create his own channel for the descent of the energy from level 1 to level 10, see the 40 vocalizations. During rituals of invocation he draws upon his own reserve of energy. Imagine, and this often happens, that he hasn't yet reached level 6 but that he needs to operate on level 6 and that, in addition, he hasn't created his own channel. The operation can still happen if he takes the necessary energy from nature's channel of level 6. At that moment there is an imbalance due to a lack of energy. Nature still rebalances its energies but at the disadvantage of the author's energies, because it takes the lacking energies from him, in quantity. This can create troubles, mostly in the nervous or sexual energy. To summarize and specify the various meanings of the word initiation, 1. For the beginning of the first part of the journey, we have counter-initiations, so called because they provide a reverse result from evolutionary initiations. In the course of this series of counter-initiations, man has fallen, original sin. He is in contradiction with the positive aspect of nature's laws but by necessity. Each counter-initiation decreases the level of the consciousness by 1. 2. The initiation of the nadir takes place when involution has attained its maximal point. This initiation does not change the level of consciousness. It puts man back in tune with the positive aspect of the laws of nature. But it does not repair the consequences of involution. It does, however, authorize the repair work. 3. The initiations of evolution bring consciousness to higher levels, one level at a time. These initiations are never conferred by a master of the earth, the inner self alone can confer them to the physical self. We now close the circle which started in the beginning of this lesson. The point is not to be for or against powers but to accept the rules of nature which concerns them. As a matter of fact, these powers should not be sought for themselves but you should accept them as they are given to you according to the advances of your growth. The use of the powers, whether they issue from a ritual or a formula or whether they are natural, the use of powers should obey a certain number of principles. As natural powers are under the surveillance of the higher self in the evolutionary phase, there is practically no possibility for error in their use. Principles to be respected: 1. Never make a flagrant demonstration of power, In fact, never tear the veil of the temple for anyone else. If you do so, you also give him the responsibility which goes along with it, but this individual may not be able to take it. 2. Do not hinder nature in its work, or at least reduce the disturbance to a minimum. 3. Use the power toward others only to facilitate their evolutionary path. Do not do their work for them, but only help to clear their way. 4. Make sure that what you ask for in the name of someone else is not contrary to his evolutionary path. 5. Never intervene a second time in a row for the same cause, particularly never heal twice in a row the same individual from the same illness. 6. If you have to consult the archives of nature, the secret should be complete about it. Never consult out of curiosity. 7. Never choose the solution of a problem but ask that it should be resolved. 8. Pray to receive understanding before you receive the powers. Work in the oratory proposed exercise. The use of a magical formula usual setup. The proposed formula should only be used in the case of a serious problem. Meditate well on the problem and find out if, from the standpoint of the invisible, the intervention is positive and appropriate. Feel and sense sacredness when you use it. The formula is Vahos plus Inostro plus Noxis plus Be plus Gloi plus Upon plus Agia plus Ajos plus Hisiros plus pause for a few seconds, Agla plus Agla plus Agla. Each sign plus corresponds to a simple sign of the cross made with the right hand in front of you outwardly and silently from top to bottom and from left to right, small gestures 15 to 20 centimeters wide. In this formula, pronounce all the endings, A like in high, Aj, Oi like in oil, CJ, On like in on. In addition we say, Agia, Ios and Hiskieros. Agla is a note arachon, the derivation of which is, 8 Tejabala Olam Adonai. In the moment immediately following the delivery of the formula, sit, meditate and concentrate on the problem to be treated. A few seconds of concentration are sufficient. Never use this formula for practical, material purposes unless your current life conditions obstruct your esoteric path. If you do not have a specific object for the use of this formula, you can use it to ask for help on your esoteric path. Usual closing. Aura et labora appendix #1, the so-called magical or Kabbalistic formulas. Appendix #1 The so-called magical or Kabbalistic formulas excerpt from the Little Philosopher of Nature. Sometimes we hear that someone knows a formula to heal burns or to stop bleeding. It is not easy to form one's opinion on those practices for the simple reason that they are not general.